Welcome back. Today we will add boss fights that are instant and always win if you can afford the attack cost. Each win gives a trophy that permanently boosts your wood per second, so collecting trophies speeds up your idle income. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is to create a new scriptable object. Just go to Assets, Scripts, Scriptable Objects, and let's create a new one called Boss SO from Scriptable Object. Okay, inside. Perfect. Okay, so this will be very familiar to you if you went through the previous episode. First thing, we need to inherit from the scriptable object. Perfect. Now let's create a few headers. Display public string display name. Yes, by default we can set boss. Why not? Then we can say again another text area. Then a new header. Pipe. Yes, and basically we can say public int HP 5 by default. Then we can say public int. Actually, now let's put that in a different header. Trophies. So each time you defeat a boss, you will get a trophy. And each trophy will increase the wood per second that you receive, basically. So by default, you receive 1 wood per second, and if the more trophies you get, the more wood per second you will receive. Okay? So we can say trophy. And we can say public string trophy name. By default, let's name it trophy. And now we want trophy wood bonus. So we can say trophy. Actually, let's make this an integer so it's easier. So we can say trophy wood bonus. And by default, let's say 1. Perfect. One last thing we have to do, if you remember, you have to add a create asset menu. Yes, new file. Let me change the order. And let me change this. So we don't want a scriptable object. We want idle dungeon boss. And then we say file name new boss. Perfect. So now we have our scriptable object. Another change that I would like to do to make it easier to reason about is we can go to game controller. We can go to the top and let's change this wood per stick to wood per sec. So this is the amount that is going to be generated per second. And now we can say private in base wood per sec 1. So basically the base will be what you will generate at the beginning of the game, and wood per sec will keep increasing the more trophies that you make or that you achieve. Okay, so now we need to change this here, of course. Perfect, that's it. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's create a new boss. So we can go to Assets, Scriptable Objects. Let's create a new folder called Bosses. And let's right click, create idle dungeon boss. Let's call this Goblin Chief. Let's create just one for now. Goblin Chief, yes, HP 5. Okay. trophy name, let's call it Goblin Mask. And let's say it's going to increase 1 wood per second. Okay, perfect. All right, let's create now our new panel. So right click on the canvas, UI, panel. Let's call this boss panel. We press F. Yes. All right, let's actually press Control Alt and let's set this to the middle as well here. And now let's rearrange all the other panels a bit. Okay, I want the shop in the middle. Okay. Now I want this. Yeah, something like that for now. Yeah, we will polish this. We will make it nicer. No worries. One thing I would like to do is to set the color the same. Oops. In this one is not as high as the rest. Yes. Okay, perfect. Let's now add a UI text, which will be header text. Let's press F. Let's go here. Let's move this to the top. Like this. Let's call this boss. Perfect. Let's set this, oops, wrong, sorry. Let's set this to, I think 24. Actually, I think it was okay. Yeah, 36. So we can set this in the middle. And one thing we can do is to drag this a bit more to the bottom, like maybe a bit, this is a bit too much, maybe a bit like this. Perfect. Okay, now what we have to do is to create again another items root. We can create empty items root. Yes. Now let's make sure it spans the whole width like this. Yes. All right. Let's assign here a vertical layout group. Let's put facing 8, child alignment, middle center. Yes. All right. Okay, so that's for it. That's it for the panel. Let's create now our prefab. So the creation of the prefab is going to be very simple. First thing, we need to go to Assets, Prefabs, and I want you to drag and drop the prefab to the hierarchy, the shop item prefab. Now I want you to duplicate it. So we duplicate it. We change the name to Boss Item. Perfect. And I want you to change the text. So it will be something like Goblin if, and it will be -5 attack. Because the idea is when you fight, let's say defeat a boss, you get a trophy and you get an increase in the number of wood per second that you get. But at the same time, your equipment wears down and you get deducted a certain amount, okay? Which is in our case, the HP of the boss, okay? So let me check. That's pretty much it for now. We can now drag and drop our boss item to the prefabs, original prefab. Perfect. Okay, so next thing I want you to do, by the way, we can remove the prefabs from the hierarchy. It's going to be, go to scripts, go to shot manager, control and control V. Yes, duplicate it. And now change the name to boss manager. Perfect. We are going to click on it. So as you will see, we will reuse quite a lot of what we did in the previous video. So that's why I'm basically duplicating the shot manager. First things first, we want to rename this to boss manager. Okay. We are going to need a game controller. That's fine. We're going to need an items root. That's fine. But this time, let's rename this to boss item prefab. Cool. We're going to need shop items, but this time it's not going to be weapon scriptable object. It's going to be boss scriptable object. And we can rename this to bosses. Perfect. Now let's rename this method. It's not build shop. Let's call this for now build list. This will build the list of bosses that we have, basically. And we can change this to bosses. Yes. This will be boss. If no boss, we continue. Here we need to change this to boss item prefab. It's going to be exactly the same concept as we saw in the previous video. So basically we will go through the list of bosses, and for each boss we will create a new prefab. Okay. And then we will set the label of the button, because our prefab is a button. And then we will assign an action when the user clicks. Okay. So for the time being, let's set the label. So it's going to be boss display name. Not going to have a gold cost. So it will be boss. This time it will be the HP of the boss will be subtracted as an attack. Okay. To you, to the player. Okay, and now button. Okay, we don't have on by click because it doesn't make sense, but we can have on fight click. Okay, and we can change this to boss SO. It will be boss. Okay, and we can change this here, and we pass the boss. Okay, bot doesn't make sense. It's more like bot. Okay, and now exactly we need to actually create a new method in the game controller, which will be try fight boss. Okay, so let me double check everything to see if I didn't forget something. No, that looks all good. Perfect. Okay, so let's create this method. All right, let's go now to game controller. Yeah, let's create the new method here. It's going to be public because we are calling it from the boss manager. Okay, so it's going to be public bool. Yeah, try fight boss. Perfect. Okay. What we need to do. So first of all, if the user doesn't have enough attack, it won't be able to fight the boss, right? So we need to return false. So we say if attack power it's lower than the boss HP, we return false. Yes. And if you remember attack power, we define it at the top, and this will be increase every time you purchase a new sword or a new weapon. Okay. So, all right. So now we have that out of the way. We can say attack power minus or equal boss HP, because we need to subtract the boss HP to our attack power. Okay, and that's pretty much it for now. Yes, one thing we need to do, because if you remember what I told you earlier, the more bosses that you defeat, the more of the higher amount of wood per second you will generate, right? So how do we keep track of that? We will keep track of that through trophies, okay? But now, if you look at the top, there is not really any place where we can keep track of the trophies, right? So we can do that right now. We can create a new field called private. This is going to be a dictionary. Will be type boss, scriptable object, int, okay? It's going to be called trophy counts, going to be new dictionary, yeah, boss scriptable object, int, perfect. What we need to do though is to import the system collections generic. This is very important. So the dictionary is found. So what is this about? Dictionary is a key value structure, right? And in our case, it will have the key, the boss scriptable object, and then as a value, we'll have the amount of trophies that we have achieved for that specific boss, okay? So it will be something like this. So let's say this is our dictionary. We'll have the key, in this case, Goblin Chief, and the value will have, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 1 is the amount of trophies that we have, okay? And then we might have another key, which is Dragon. And then we can have the value of 2, which would mean we have 2 trophies for our dragon boss, okay? And we can add as many keys and values as we want, okay? So we can delete that. Perfect. So with this new data structure, we can go back and now we say, okay, when we fight the boss, what do we want? Okay, so the first thing is if there is no key for that boss, okay, like this, if trophy counts contains key, if doesn't contain key, the boss, okay, what do? We initialize it. So we say traffic counts, okay, we can say boss, what? 0, okay, because we have zero trophies for that boss, because before this statement, the boss was not even in the dictionary. So we have now 0. And now that it's initialized, we can do trophy counts boss ++. So we say add 1. So this is the saying add 1 to the trophy counts for that boss. Okay, so if you had, let's say, 4 trophy counts for that boss, now you would have 5. It would simply add 1. Okay, and now we say we return here true, right? Because we were able to fight the boss. Perfect. So I think this is it. Let's make this maybe a bit nicer. Okay, cool. Now the boss manager, yes, is able to find this function, and now this should work. Another thing we have to do before we forget is to go to the UI controller, and if you have a look at the file, there is one thing here which is fishy, right? Right now the wood per second is hard-coded. It always says 1, which is not what we want, right? We want to show the proper amount, right? So if we defeat a boss, I don't want to have one wood per second. I want to have more, right? I want to see an increase. So we can say this. So in this case will be gain controller dot wood per sec. Yes. There is a red thingy here because probably it's not public. Yes, exactly. So we need to make this public so we are able to reference it. Okay, good. Perfect. That's it. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can go back to Unity. We need to make sure, yes, the boss manager should be assigned to the boss panel. This is very important. And now, as we did in the previous video, we need to wire up a few things. So game controller goes here, items root goes here, then boss item prefab, we need to find it from here. So we go here, boss item prefab, perfect. And now we need to assign the boss that we have, which is Goblin Chief. Yes. Now, let's say what happens when we press play. Okay, look at that. Look at that. Right there. Of course, it doesn't work when you click because you don't have any attack, so you cannot fight it. But let's say you sell the wood we have. Now you have 17 gold. You can purchase the wooden sword. Now we have 5. Cannot purchase it again because you don't have enough. But now what happens if you fight the boss? All right, you see, now we have 0 attacks. So the HP, in this case 5, will subtract it for attack, and now we have 0. We can sell again the wood, and then we can see, we can have 15 attack, and we can fight the boss. Okay, this seems to be working, but there is a bug. So see, every time we defeat the boss, we want the wood per second to increase, right? But it remains at 1. Let's find out what's wrong. All right, so there is a few things that are missing. So first of all, we don't use base wood per second at all in this file, right? We can search for it. Nope, we don't use it. And this is not okay, especially because at the same time, we mentioned earlier that our number of wood per second will depend on the trophies, right? But yeah, we are adding trophies here every time we defeat a boss, okay? But we are not doing anything with that. We are not increasing our efficiency, okay? So we can create a new method, okay? We can call it private void recalculate wood per sec, okay? The first thing is that we need to assign our base, okay, to the wood per second, okay? And now what we have to do? We have to loop over our trophies. How we can do that? We can use that with for each. We can say for each var key value, okay, which is our key and value. Key is the boss, and value is the amount of trophies for that boss. We can say key value in trophy counts. Yes, we can say that. And we can say, okay, the boss is going to be the key. And we can say the count is going to be the value. Okay? Now with that, we can say if the boss exists, okay? If boss exists, then we can say the wood per second will be plus equal the boss wood per actually it's called trophy. Let me double check. How is it called? Trophy wood bonus. Yes, so we can go here. Okay. Multiply by the count, which is the amount of trophies. So if you achieve, I don't know, 5 trophies for the Goblin Chief, then you will have 5 multiplied by the trophy wood amount bonus for that boss. Okay. Let me double check, but I think this should be it. The thing we have to do, of course, is to call this function. We can call it right here. Perfect. Okay, let's see if this works. And click play. Let's make this bigger. Okay, let's wait until we have 10 wood. Now, okay, now we can purchase this wooden sword. And now, if we click the Goblin Chief, okay, look at that. Now we generate 2 wood per second. Perfect. It's working. Let's create now. Let's wait until we have 40 so we can purchase the more powerful sword. Okay, now we have 30 attack and we can purchase, we can fight the boss many more times. So we can, yeah, look, now we get 8 woods per second. Okay, so this is incrementing nicely. Perfect. All right, so before finishing this video, I want to create a few more bosses. We can go to Assets, Scriptable Objects, Bosses, and let's create a few more. Boss, okay, let's move this right here. Second boss is going to be called Orc Warlord, okay, perfect. It's going to have 20 HP, and yeah, the trophy is going to be called Orc Fang. And yeah, this is going to give, let's say, 3 wood per second. Okay. Let's rename also this here. Okay. Let's create 2 more. This is the next one is going to be called Troll Brute. Okay. Troll Brute. It's going to have 100 HP. The trophy is going to be called Troll Club, for example, and it's going to give 10. Okay, and finally, let's create a new one. That's going to be Dragon. Name Dragon. Going to have 1000 HP. Trophy Dragon scale, and it's going to give, let's say maybe, I don't know, 75. Yes, much more than our Troll Brute. Yeah, we will tweak these values to have a better balance, but for now it's fine. One thing we have to do, if you remember, we have to go to our boss panel and add the bosses to our list. So we can say here element 2 is going to be Orc Warlord, Troll Brute, and then the Dragon. Okay, so now in theory, if we click play, we should see the 4 bosses there. Yes, you see there. Perfect, everything is working. All right, that's all for this video, and I will see you in the next one.